First order of business is to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion on this? We have the one amendment also, yeah, but, okay, Michael?
Move that council adopt the agenda as presented with the addendum.
Okay, and just so we're clear, the addendum is 9.2, broadband, title or trial, project, and scope change. Any other changes? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda? Carried. Moving on to our scheduled delegation. Come on up. And I'll just maybe tell you that we do broadcast or record our sessions. So when you get up, maybe you can just sort of give your names and who you're representing, because the people in TV land may want to know.
No problem whatsoever. Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you here this evening. My name is Kevin Meller, and with me is my colleague Jeff Nixon. We are municipal accountability advisors with Alberta Municipal Affairs. So as such, our role is to help and support municipalities in understanding and achieving compliance with all the different legislation out there, whether it be the Municipal Government Act. We also work with the Local Authorities Elections Act, the Emergency Management Act, the Libraries Act, and numerous other acts and regulations that also fall, everything that falls under the purview of the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Last year, the then Minister announced the delivery of a new program called the Municipal Accountability Program, or because we're in government, we love our acronyms, and the MAP program. MAP is a mandatory program for all municipalities under 5,000 population, and the intention is that every municipality will participate in this program once every 4 years. The list that we do for where we go is generated at random, so the fact that we are here in the second year of the program is due to the fact of the random number generator more than anything else. We do pay a little bit of attention to try to split it up between municipal districts and counties, towns, villages, and summer villages, just so that we're hitting all parts of Alberta, but other than that, it's a pure random number generator. One of the big things is this is strictly a review looking at items of legislative compliance, the musts and shalls of the Municipal Government Act. So as part of our process, we don't actually interview members of council or members of the public. We don't delve into local issues. This is very much that look at those musts and shalls specifically in the legislation. And we've got about 70 different areas that we review as part of this program in 2019, which encompasses, I'm not even exactly sure the number of shells, but it's fairly significant. We'll work collaboratively with Brian, and we've started through this process already. We had a meeting with Brian today. We'll go through a lot of the documents that he's provided for us as well, and we will build a customized report for this community. We'll highlight the areas where you're doing really well and where you are meeting all those little musts and shalls of the legislation. And if there's anything in your processes or some of the specific bylaws or policies that we look at where there's a gap between how you're currently doing things and what the legislation says, we'll note that in the report. We'll provide some action items essentially for potentially how to address those. And throughout this entire process, Jeff and myself, as well as the advisory team and others at Municipal Affairs, will be fully available to help and support the community in any way that we can as we go through this process. Once we complete the report, it will be sent to you. There won't be anything confidential in the report whatsoever, so it is the expectation of the Minister that your CAO will share it with Council here in an open Council meeting for your information as well. Once you've received the report, you'll have an 8-week period to generate a response plan. This isn't to fix the items at this point in time yet. It's simply to generate a plan on how you're going to go about and address any gaps that may be noted in the report. From there, you'll have a full year to implement any changes that might be required as a result of our visit and our report. Our attendance here tonight is simply to observe procedural items in the when it comes to a council meeting. Things like voting, or if there was a declaration of pecuniary interest, is the process as outlined in the Municipal Government Act being followed. Other than this presentation, we will simply be flies on the wall. We won't otherwise interact or provide commentary or anything else in regards to this council meeting. It's your council meeting, so we will have no other involvement. Is there anything I missed in terms of?
Well, just one comment. There's a lot of preparation that goes into this before we get here. So we look at a whole bunch of bylaws. We look for some resolutions. Just wanted to thank Brian and the administration just for putting all that together. So when we arrived today, we had a nice package filled with all these documents that we had requested. It really made the afternoon enjoyable. We had a chance to go through some of those, but also just have a general discussion. So we just appreciate the administration's help getting us this information. And moving forward, we'll be back and forth quite a bit too. So I just wanted to make that point and thank him.
Thanks, Jeff. Beyond that, that is the extent of our presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions as well in regards to the program.
Any questions? No. I had one with just the report will come to us when?
Our estimate is approximately 8 weeks, just by the time that we go through, do a full review of the documents, right, and there's multiple layers, of course, that it goes through at the Government of Alberta. So we would anticipate that you'll probably receive it within about 8 weeks.
Okay. And I'm just curious on, you've obviously done some already. How are other communities doing? Are they mostly complying, or can we expect, I would expect that we would be complying with everything, but I'm just curious how others are doing, or if we're going to likely get a list that we're going to have to.
To be perfectly honest, every municipality has something. We have, in the 2 years of the program, we have never been to a municipality that doesn't have a gap in their processes. But the big thing to really consider with this program is this is very much a proactive and educational program. This is, we're very much here to collaborate and assist. We're not here to cause any issues. We're not here to, make. It's very much about this collaborative education. So anything that might be found, we want to work together with the municipality in terms of rectifying that.
As a capacity unit, so the unit we're a part of as in government is a capacity building unit. So we provide advisory support. If you ever phone into the office, you might get one of us. We also provide roles and responsibilities training. We participate and put on the sessions for the regional training initiatives and all those sort of things. So we're not tracking any of these gaps that municipalities have. What we're doing is finding themes that we can develop more resources and tools. So if you go on the Municipal Affairs website, you'll find lots of resources and tools. So some of them are to do with council meeting procedures, bylaws, all those kind of things. So if we identify an area where municipalities as a whole could use some more help, we're looking at developing training opportunities and new handbooks and those kind of things. I'm sure you've been to the website. If you haven't, I can provide that link. But that's what we're kind of tracking, and that's going into our training strategy and that sort of thing. So all municipalities are different, and there's a lot of requirements. There's things that have changed, there's things that are coming, and this is an opportunity to talk to municipalities, make sure that CAOs and councils are aware of the changes when they come in effect, those kind of things. So a lot of the items that are in the report are for discussion only, for things that are coming. We encourage councils to read them front to back. There's a lot of things in there just to be aware of. Also, it shows what CAOs have to do. They spin a lot of plates. There's a lot of things they've got to be aware of. And it's a good read and for a reminder of how much they have to be on top of, and so does council. And so that's sort of there's no sort of scorecarding. It's about where are some gaps that we can see that we can provide more assistance to.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions?
I'm fine.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you very much for having us here this evening.
Thank you, and we look forward to your report. See, make sure that we can meet up and meet all of our expectations. Yeah.
You never know. Somebody is going to be the first someday.
We'll be the first one that'll be on everything.
Thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, do we have any public delegations? No? All right, so we'll move on to our November 12th meeting minutes. Can I get a motion on this? Councillor Courtley.
Council approve the minutes from the November 12th, 2019 regular meeting of council as presented.
All right, was there any changes, alterations, comments on these minutes? All right, seeing none. All of those in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business, a letter of support.
Can you use your mic, please?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Letter of support for the CARES grant. Can I get a motion on that one? Councillor Corley.
The council sign and send the letter that supports Big Lakes County to aid in their application for the Community and Regional Economic Development Supports, also as CARES, initiative for funding to put towards a tourism website.
Discussion on this?
This is a result, pardon?
Councillor Long?
This is as a result of Victoria's visit that we had, and they're developing that webpage, and we're
Correct, and there is a grant available, so they were putting a grant together to see if we could get some more money, and if we can match it, we'd have some more money to build a better website.
Yep.
So that's the intent. Yeah. Okay, no other questions on it? We had a motion to approve the letter. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to our 2020 interim operating budget. Can we get a motion to start this discussion off with? I'll make a motion on this one that council approve the 2020 interim operating budget based on the same totals from the 2019 operating budget. And I'll turn it over to Brian. He can discuss a little bit about it.
Typically every year at this time, council approves an interim operating budget so we can continue operating till the new year, till our final 2020 operating budget is passed. So I provided the numbers that in the motion last year that was council had approved, so we will continue with these numbers until we have our finalized budget passed in 2020, hopefully prior to March.
Yeah, and just as a question, that this interim doesn't preclude us from making any changes if we need
No.
to, right? Like we can increase it or decrease
Yes.
it as needed.
Yes, council can make them changes.
Can I get a copy of that, please? Or is that not for the public?
No.
I got a copy here you could use. Yeah. Any other questions on this one? No. We've been here before and done some of these. Yeah, we know we're getting it through. Councillor Danaka?
So when is our next budget meeting where we're deciding on approving it officially? Like when will you have those numbers?
The interim treasurer that I have hired right now is working on them numbers. He has to sit down and Skype with Vernon and myself prior to adding some additional figures to that budget. So we're still in the creating process, but
Okay.
until we have our tax numbers on that to create to see how much revenue we will have, and again the MSI funding in that I don't have that total yet. the gas grant tax, we don't know that number yet, so that's all gonna reflect the budget, so. So I would hope that I would bring it back in early January for another review.
Okay. So and I know this wasn't discussed when we had our budget meetings prior to, but the COLA. Like when are we going to discuss whether there is or isn't going to be?
Once when council approves the budget, the COLA numbers are in the budget. So if you approve the budget, the numbers are in there, so, and I believe they're added, the previous treasurer added at a 2% increase.
So if council is not in favor of that, so do we not approve the interim?
Yes, not the interim, the final budget.
The final?
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Courtley.
But the question is, we're gonna have an actual meeting where we're gonna physically go through the budget again, correct?
Yes.
And we'll know those numbers then, Donna. And we can hash that out and fine tune then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We also have the capital budget to look at. This is just the operating. Anything else? No? This just gives us the time to get it done before the end of December, because this has to be done before the end of December. It's done. We still have to work on the final budget. We know it'll be close to previous year, but we'll get close. Councillor Courtley?
Yeah, because I'm just looking at this, that's why last year we did not approve that right away. And we ended up having to ask for an extension.
No, not on that.
Was it not on this? I thought it was on this, on the budget, we had to ask for extension. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was.
We passed an interim budget last year in December. So we have to every year, so we
Yeah.
continue to pay our bills.
Or was it just that close?
It was, no, we had to, I think what you're thinking of is we had to get an extension to get our audit completed
Yes.
last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My bad. All right, thank you.
Councillor Long?
Do we know what the province is going to be doing? Are they implementing a COLA, or is there a freeze right across from provincial side?
I haven't heard.
Well, they've frozen some things. and
Yes,
So,
reduced
but-
some and frozen
yeah.
some.
Councillor Courtley?
I think if not, I could be mistaken again, but they're all, I think all ministers in the whole, everybody's taken a drop,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Not just a freeze, but a drop in wages.
Yeah, we can add to that, but they've also approved that they're going to get COLA every year. So it's not really frozen. They'll be back up to where they were in a couple of years, like the ministers. So they took a drop, but once the COLA kicks in after a couple of years, they'll be right back where they were. So it's a slight drop, but they're coming back up. There's some others, like in quasi-government like myself, that we had ours frozen even under the NDP government. They required us to freeze ours, and we haven't gotten any COLA in like 6 years. Frozen and no COLA. Yeah. So. Any other comments on this one? Questions, discussions? All right, we have the motion to approve the interim operating budget with the same numbers as 2019. All those in favor? It is passed. Man, we are just ripping through our short agenda today. We have our addendum 9.2 broadband. Get a motion on this one. Councillor Long?
That council approved the scope change in the amount of $48,000 plus additional engineering costs for the new proposed larger downtown pilot project as submitted by Taylor Warwick, and proceed with the design of the trial project for the town of High Prairie, with funding to come from the annual capital grant provided each year from Great Lakes County.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Discussion on this one. Brian?
Just to inform council that at last year's meeting, you can see the motion 495 of 18 that council approved to use $225,000 from that grant that we received from the county towards the pilot project. So my thinking was to increase that additional $48,000 and use them funds so we didn't depreciate our funds, our town's reserves. So that was the reasoning behind it. So.
Okay, I have a question, and it's around, it says plus additional engineering costs. Is there an estimate on what those engineering costs are going to be?
They never give that estimate. They said it depends on the size of the project, and that was within Jennifer's report there.
Well, they know what the size of the project is. If they're going to increase this, they would.
We'll have to ask them questions when we meet with them on the next, I believe it's next week.
Okay, I'm just concerned that if we're going to approve 48,000 and then we get surprised with an additional engineering cost of, I'm just throwing something out there, they want an additional 50,000 to engineer that, that's a big extra change, as opposed to if it's a $5,000 hit, it's not as bad. But I'm just curious what the estimate is on
They
that.
never give an estimate.
Okay.
That's scary. Frugal engineers, those two words don't always go together in my opinion. And so, that's scary.
Yeah, and I have problems approving sort of a blank check, so to speak. I would rather have an estimate or a sort of a maximum number in there that we could approve.
Do we have?
Now, is there a time frame in when this has to be made, or can we bring this back to our next council meeting once we know more?
We can ask her at the meeting what the numbers are, and I can bring her back to the next meeting on the 10th of December, I think is our next council meeting.
Okay, because yeah, I think that would be just to get an estimate. Without that, it's hard to approve something just carte blanche. Councillor Courtley?
Now this Taylor Warwick or Magna fee estimate. Now looking at the picture, is that what they decided, or is that part of the group? Were you involved in that group that decided on the parameter of where they're going to put that, or is that something they're just guessing at?
I can answer
If we go to the
that.
last picture.
Yeah. If I'm looking at that, we had at one time discussed doing more of downtown, and the first sort of concept was, if you look at the picture and you look from the town office, it goes across the highway and comes along. And then we said, well, let's do some more of downtown, and we could do more. This is the estimate on what more would be. So we did talk about doing more of the downtown core so we don't have to come back, as opposed to that one sort of single line that would run us from A to B. And that's their estimated additional costs to run fiber to those downtown businesses.
I see.
So we did discuss those particular boundaries of just saying that would be a starting point.
Do we,
Councillor Long?
Do we want to maybe withdraw this motion or just add to it friendly addendum that we'll wait until, rather than voting it in, because I think we're all pretty.
In terms of process, oh, go ahead.
Council can vote in and approve this amount because we know this amount, but we'll bring back a further motion for the engineering to approve costs for engineering.
So we're gonna have to be prepared to say no if it comes in gastronomically high. I mean, I'm worried about what they consider engineering fees and what would be considered appropriate.
I don't believe on the scope of the project of additional 48,000 that the engineering will be that much higher.
Okay.
Just on the totals of themselves of 48,000,
Yeah.
I don't think the cost of the engineering would be that much.
Now, and the other thing with the estimated engineering costs for the first part of this, that's built into the what was the amount that we were already approved? The 225? That includes the engineering costs, right? Yeah. So that part of it's covered?
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Danaka?
When I'm reading this motion, and this is just my interpretation, when I'm reading this motion, the council approved the scope change in the amount of $48,000. When I'm reading that, that tells me that we're spending $48,000. That's it. Because it doesn't have the amount that was on the first motion that says it's 225 plus the 48,000.
Council had approved the $225,000. This was additional. The $48,000 was additional for the larger pilot project.
Right, but we made that motion in 2018
Yes.
for the 225. So the motion now, and again, this is just my interpretation of this. The motion says approve the scope change in the amount of $48,000.
An additional.
What I'm thinking that the amount that we've already approved should be in that motion, saying we've approved 225, but we want to increase it by 48,000. So that the amount that we've already approved is in the motion. Is all that's just what I'm looking for.
is that not redundant?
Yeah.
It's already been approved.
Yeah, council has already approved the 225,000 already. This is the additional.
But it doesn't say that in the option. It just says we're approving in the amount of $48,000.
The scope change to add
Scope
to the
change.
bigger.
Adding $48,000. Even though what I'm saying when I'm reading this, if I'm a Joe Public out there, says, oh well, okay, this is only costing us $48,000 because they're not seeing that we've already approved from 2018 225, and we're increasing that from 225 to another, adding $48,000 to the 225 we've already approved. So it's clear, we've already approved 225, but we're increasing that amount for adding another $48,000 to the 225.
Councillor Courtley?
It doesn't, I understand what you're saying in the actual motion, but that motion we've made back, we approved that. But in the background and all the discussion part of the motion it explains all that, what you're asking for. It explains that we've approved that amount and it's an additional cost over and above that amount that we've already approved. It says that in the discussion part.
It says that.
But do you want us to have that all said in that motion?
Yes.
Well,
And my reasoning is that if somebody in Joe Public comes, they'll see the motion that's in the agenda, but they won't see the background. They'll just see that, oh, the change of scope, now it's only costing us $48,000.
can I,
Councillor Farley, yep.
would it help by just adding, to add an additional 48,000?
To the already approved
And-
225.
And name you don't necessarily have to name the value, but you can name the motion. List the motion. I'm just thinking for length of, I don't know.
I'm just looking for clarity.
Yeah.
Because if somebody looks at the agenda, they'll see that we passed the motion, but they're not going to see the background that's here when they look at the agenda or the minutes from the meeting. They're not going to see the background that says we've approved 225. So all I'm asking is, in the motion, can we say that council has already approved 225 for the broadband, but is looking at adding another 48,000 to the already approved amount, etc. That's all I'm asking, just for clarity.
Okay, and I don't think that should be a problem to add in, but I'm going to muddy the waters a little bit more in that I was looking at this technical memo that came from Taylor Warwick, and on page 2 of that, right under the, there's a fee estimate, and it talks about the scope of work change requested is an additional $73,000. This is a portion of the work completed as of January 19th, and the increase in size of the downtown High Prairie pilot project. So back in 2018, we originally approved some money for the downtown core. And then we changed our mind with the hope of getting that government funding and asked them to do a bigger project. And then they came back to us again and said, okay, we need a motion to say we want to go back to the original scope, but we've already spent some money, so we're going to need some more money because we spent some of the money working on our other initiative, where we wanted to go when we put everything on hold. So they wanted more money there, and now they're coming back for more. So I am getting a little confused on what the final number is myself. Is they're asking. They said that that they wanted another 73,000, and I can't remember what we approved, and that was just a month or two ago when we did that change. So I'm confused on it. What's the final number? Is it truly, because they're saying that they were asking for 73,000, and this is asking for 48.
And again,
Councillor Long?
I'm not necessarily concerned about the additional 48,000 because that's pretty self-explanatory. We're expanding the size of the scope, so therefore it's going to cost more. What concerns me is that nebulous zero out there that's going to explode on us, and plus the additional engineering costs, which means totally nothing. We're going to approve it and leave ourselves open to this huge surprise when it comes through. We'll say, well, no, we passed the motion. And so I would feel more comfortable. We can include the amount for sure, but I'd be more comfortable in postponing that until we find out what they're talking about and how much it's going to be.
Yeah. And so I'm sort of there just to make sure that we're clear too, because they don't need a definitive answer. I mean, I think as council, we're hearing that for the most part, when we meet with them again, that we're likely okay with the 48,000, like to expand to cover downtown. Is that, a safe? I'm seeing some nods, so we're likely going to approve that. It's just what's the final number? We'd want to know that, and we'd like to try and clarify what did we really approve before, because I know there was a slight price increase the last time, so we're sort of getting multiple increases here with this one. So I'm thinking that we might want to just defeat this motion and then bring it back to the next council meeting once we know more, get a chance to clarify that.
And you have,
Councillor Long?
and our CAO has all the information and, okay. Yeah, then I'd be open to that.
The broadband committee was supposed to meet. Taylor Warwick were trying to call a meeting for next Friday, but I'm away in Grimshaw at another meeting, so I emailed her back this morning and told her that any time during next week would work for me, but yeah,
So they're looking at getting
They're looking
something
at an
fairly
alternate
quickly.
date, yeah.
And I don't know if this is that critical that they need a decision. It isn't that time sensitive, right? Because if they are they've got enough engineering to get them started with all of the rest of it, that they can be busy engineering the rest of it, and then the rest of the downtown they could build on to after once we have a price and go from there. Okay, any other discussion on this? So Councillor Courtley?
So you're saying you don't want to approve this then?
I would feel more comfortable having it come back to us. If we're hearing from the mayor and from our CAO that we have time, then I think it's prudent that we just go a little bit slower on it. If we jump at this and go, yeah, let's do it, without any real discussion on what that engineering cost is going to be, they'll just be rubbing their hands, I think.
I guess it's just a simple question to them. We need an actual number. What do they figure the engineering cost is going to be?
Yes, and I think we need to be clear, and again, so that's one question, is what's the engineering cost? And then the other question that's coming in is, what was the other approval that we made a month or two ago? Because we did approve the scope change, and there was also a slight increase in costs at that scope change. And now there's an additional cost, and I thought that other scope change, I understand the other scope change, but now I want the total price tag, so we need to put those two other new pieces together, and then we have a final price tag on it. And I do like Councillor Danaka's idea of putting it in there so we know what the final price tag is going to be, and say this is the final price, and we need a scope change from this to this.
Okay, so question.
Go ahead.
So if we defeat this, then can we turn around with another motion or do we need another motion for administration to come back with those? You know what I mean? Because again, for clarification to the general public, is that here's another motion. All of a sudden now it's defeated with no explanation. So are we doing broadband or are we not doing broadband? Right? So we need to. I would like to see another motion to put toward to admin to come back with the additional engineering costs plus the total pricing of the whole scope.
Well done.
Okay.
Provide that motion.
Yeah. So I think that's good, and then it's on the books of what we want done. Okay, so let's start with our first motion that we have that to approve the 48,000 plus engineering costs. We'll vote on that first. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. And Councillor Courtley, did you have another motion that you'd like to make?
Well, I do, and I'm not sure if I can state it the same as I did last time.
Well, I'm
be
sure,
honest.
I'm sure Nancy's got it written down in a really nice format for you.
Help me, Nancy.
Yeah.
Not yet, but I can help you figure it out.
Okay, that, I make motion that, council asks administration to, pardon? Direct administration to, bring back the, scope change, the amount with the scope change with an engineering cost plus the, overall total project cost for a future meeting.
That's a good motion.
Is it? I think my first one was better.
You're gonna get inflated.
Yeah.
What's that?
You're gonna get inflated the money.
Can you
Yo,
read
no,
that
I
when
will
you get
not.
it?
So,
Can you read that when you get it down?
It's like all in short form.
Oh.
That council direct administration to bring back the scope change with, kind of have to fill it in,
Proposed engineering costs.
with proposed engineering costs and a total cost to a future meeting.
to a future meeting, yeah. Everybody understands the motion, or any discussion on that one? Oh, go ahead, Councillor.
So, the total cost of the project,
Yeah, total project.
or, and what we've put, or what we've paid, or what we've approved to date? Is that in there somewhere?
Well,
Go ahead.
I would think with the total pricing, it should show
What we've
everything.
approved to date?
It should show. It should show everything we need to see. And
Okay.
well, you're asking
All right.
for Donna. It should show all that. In theory.
Go ahead, right?
I'll break that stuff all down in the background information for council.
Right.
Okay, any other discussion on this point? Seeing none, we have a motion to bring it back to another meeting with the total price. All those in favor? It is carried. All right, we're moving on then to our CAO's report and action list. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Danaka.
I make a motion the council receive the action list for information.
Okay, I will turn it over to Brian if you want to highlight anything or any other things that happened.
Just let council know that I finally got in contact with the roofers for the Sports Palace. And they informed me that they're delayed again and they won't be in till the 15th of December. So I asked the gentleman if he could ensure that it would be done before Christmas. And he said, if all goes well, they should be out in a little over a week. So he said they got delayed a month this fall because of weather and that. So it's still in the process. So it's still on the books. I'm still phoning them and emailing them and making sure that they are here to make the repairs. Other than that, I met with Municipal Affairs this afternoon. Went fairly well. I learned some things like I didn't know we had to have a motion to designate the town office as our meeting place. So that'll be coming as a motion at a future council meeting. I'll look back in the minutes, but I don't believe it is. It'll be part of the stuff that we haven't been doing.
So we're not going to have a clean
No, we're not gonna
record
have a record.
already. Oh,
Is that
man.
in the procedural bylaw?
I don't know if it is or not, I don't,
But,
anyways, don't have to look now, but they have a copy of the procedural bylaw also, so. Other than that,
no, nothing else?
it's nothing else, no.
Any questions for our CAO? Councillor Long?
Just in regards to the reconciliation training, are we gonna follow through with it further, or is this something we,
That,
Go ahead.
that's up to council to, if you wanna me to contact somebody and provide that training on a weekend.
yeah. And better discuss probably when the full council's here, that way everybody gets this sort of carried at the can.
Yeah. Yeah, we should probably clean that off of the.
It should be an easy one to get done, but.
Well, yeah, you would think, but we know that it's not as easy as we would think. And we have had other options that we have explored with the Friendship Center.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I know some people have taken advantage of that, some of our council, and some haven't, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for our CAO? Probably not much, because we already talked to him yesterday at our evaluation, so a little bit calmer there. Okay, seeing no more questions for him, we have a motion to receive his report for information. All those in favor? It is carried. Moving on to our councillor written. Oh, is there a notice of any upcoming meetings that we need to know about? Anything out of the ordinary? Nope. Written and verbal reports. We'll start off with Councillor Danaka.
No report.
All right. Councillor Gilroy's not here. Councillor Long.
No report.
All right. Oh. I sense a report coming.
But we spoke about the Recreation Department budget review. Did we talk of that already in the previous?
I don't know what you.
The meeting that we had here
Yes.
for the county?
Yes.
Did we bring that forward in discussion?
That has been submitted within the
Yes.
budget.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
Okay. All right. For my report, I got a verbal report just to let you know that we attended a Heart River Housing meeting, and it was a subcommittee meeting that was meeting to discuss the possibility of building that new facility in High Prairie. So that's looking good. The subcommittee is taking to the Heart River Housing Committee the recommendation that we move forward. They looked at some of the business plans and the financials, and it all seemed to work. And so we're proposing that we put some money towards engineering to get that project started. And that's going to go to Heart River Housing's board meeting on Thursday. So it's all looking like that's still moving ahead, which is good. Councillor Long?
Do they have land designated already, or is it still sort of in the works and they're not sure where they want to build this?
That's part of the engineering idea. They're looking at seeing if they can fit it onto the existing land that they have. So they're looking at that. They're looking at the possibility of, if they can't fit it on there, maybe moving their administration office off of that land, and then they would have that whole, that's what's currently the administration building, and the storage that they have there, and maybe relocating that to another location. So they're at this point it's in the air, but they're looking at all of those options to see where they could fit it in.
So they're looking at possibly taking out the greenhouse and the fountain and all of that as well? Or?
No. No, it would be, if you're thinking where the shops are,
Yeah.
and then extending across towards the other, the privately owned place there.
Yeah.
They're also looking at maybe talking to the school division because they have that land right there. So yeah, it's, the first thing they wanted to do is see if the existing land could accommodate it. If not, what are the other options? And they've been tossing around tons of them, so.
Yeah.
Nothing finalized yet.
Okay.
Also attended a ICF meeting, and as you know, all of the items that we wanted to discuss with the county have all been discussed and agreed to. So they're now putting all of that into one document that will come back to our council for approval on that. And then we would send that and the IDP into the province to meet that. So that's the one of the things we talked about. We talked a little bit also on a separate recruitment and retention committee. Right now, the recruitment and retention is part of the Community Health Foundation. There was some talk of moving that out. There was some reasons maybe to keep it in. And so there was a Health Foundation meeting last week also, and they were going to talk about it. So we'll have to see what they came out of it and move forward from there. But it's being talked about. The other thing at the ICF that we talked about was connecting with our Indigenous neighbors. How can we do that better? So there was lots of discussions on what we could try. I mean, we had everything from sort of formal meetings to very informal wine and cheese or stew and bannock or whatever we wanted to call it, just to get together. And we sort of went on the idea, let's pick one topic, much like when we had Tulco. That was when we all got together and lobbied for Tulco. That seemed to work well. At the ICF, we had talked about, one thing that everybody agrees on and we could work towards as a starting point was starting with dialysis. But now we know dialysis was approved, so that's not anything that we're going to be, we don't need to get together on there, so maybe we'll have to sit down and find another topic that we think everybody could agree with. So that was where that is. Still want to proceed with something, but we'll have to go back to square one and figure out if we can have something else. Another meeting we had was last Friday. We met with MLA Pat Wren, and yeah, he showed up, and that was great. We thanked him for the dialysis unit. We asked him again about the demolition of the old hospital. We also asked him about the regulations on the ESO and environmental regulations, because we haven't heard anything more, because they were looking at changing those regulations that might put some pressure on ESO to actually reclaim it, but we haven't heard anything more. So we were hoping he might be able to help us with that. Expressed our concerns about the downloading of costs onto our ratepayers. And just gave them a heads up on the issue of getting doctors into town, that they'll probably be receiving a letter, and also that as part of our public delegation, it looks like we're going to likely have a petition that's going to be going out for the demolition of the old hospital. So he's got a heads up that we have a citizens working on that and might get that sent out.
How many times would we like to fill it out?
So that was all of the other meetings and a summary of what was covered. Any other questions on it?
Go ahead. Comment.
I know that Chris Clegg was really firm and persistent in contacting Pat, trying to get Pat to come in and at least offer points of view and whatever. and he was really good at that, and I think some of the movement that we saw with Pat coming here now was a direct result of that, so thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it was, I mean, Pat had indicated he did get he was getting pressure from all sides on the dialysis, which is good, right? Like he had heard it from the town, he had heard it from Chris, he had heard it from other citizens, he had heard it from the county. So he was getting it from all sides, which was good. And he did mention when he was here that he had to go to bat for us because there was other communities with the same and other communities with similar, not the same, but issues, and they were wanting units, and so he fought for us, he says, and got it through. So that was good.
When do we expect it to be here?
Very good question. We asked him that very question, and being as last Friday was only 2 days after the announcement, they didn't have a timeline. He said it would be a couple of weeks before he's likely going to know more, and we'd find out when we could expect it. But there's lots to do in terms of getting requests out there and stuff. So they're getting staff trained. They weren't sure how long that was going to take. So they had lots of issues and questions that they'd have to address before he could get back to us on that one.
Good. Better than what we were at.
Yeah. No other questions? I move my verbal report for information. All those in favor? It's carried. Councillor Courtley?
Just a verbal report. So I wasn't here at the last meeting because I was in the city with the County of Big Lakes at the RMA conference, which was actually it's like the AUMA but smaller, and it's very. But what I was amazed at was the amount of ministers that were there. It was actually very. There was a lot of people that were there that normally wouldn't be. We went and saw a few of the ministers. We had a few meetings, not as many as normally, but we met with Minister Jason Nixon. Is it Nixon? It's the Parks and Environment. Is it Environment and Parks Minister? Yeah, that was a really good meeting. I don't have my notes here. I had notes and everything, so I'm flying. Anyways, and Minister Madu,
Municipal Affairs.
Yeah, Municipal Affairs Minister. That was a good meeting as well. Again, a lot of the same reasonings that we have when we go to the meetings, right? Well voiced, very, very positive meetings actually. So and then they met, of course, with the RCMP, and they met with. But I was not in that meeting, so.
Because that's
Yeah,
Yes.
there's lots to that.
Yeah, right, so for policing and the counties, and
There's lots of questions.
they're flush with cash.
Yeah. So there's going to be lots more coming out of that yet. So, but it was good actually. Pat's admin, Martine Carafel, she was there with us and met with all the ministers, and she took down all of our concerns and everything that representing Pat because he was out. But that was one thing. I was trying to get him to come for the light up, but he is in it's an AGM. UPC AGM in Calgary that weekend, I think it is. So he probably told you can't come, right? Okay, you knew that already, Chris? Okay.
Martine will be here for you.
Okay, that's what I told her. I told her to come in. But so yeah. Then also meetings. I was at the ICF with Brian, and then I was also at the Waste Management Authority meeting, which was a good meeting. Went through the budget, financials and stuff, which sitting good. Good volumes at the landfill. Just there's a lot of construction stuff and a lot of other industrial or what can I say here? Business garbage that doesn't hit our landfill. It goes out of town still, so we're working on that. And it was actually good. East Prairie was at the meeting. And in the 2-3 years that I've been on that board, that was the first time. So it was good that they've came. And Gerald Cunningham, he's now out there, so he's changing things, and it sounds like it'll be better. So there'll be representation on ongoing, so which is perfect. So yeah, so we're looking at some changes. One of the things that, speaking of which, with Mr. Nixon or Minister Nixon, was that changing our classification of our landfill to offset the waste coming from the mills, like the chips and the sawdust and the. It's a twofold thing. We wanted to have the ability to store it for them, plus use it in the landfill for capping and stuff. But there's regulations on that they can't move, but they're looking at different ways of maybe working with us in a different zoning in a different area for storage, because it's reusable. It's not going in as a final waste. So there's different classifications, so we're working on that. So yeah. Any questions? Then I move my verbal report for information.
All those in favor?
Can I vote on my own?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have Councillor Rose's. We have her written report. Yeah. Yeah. Is there any questions on her report? Yeah, we'll just approve it for information after if there's no questions or nothing. Okay. I'll move Councillor Rose's written report for information. All those in favor? It's carried. And Councillor Stenhouse is not here. And our last agenda item is the confidential item. Can we get a motion to move into closed session?
I can.
Councillor Courtley.
The council move into closed session at 8:03 p.m. as per Section 17, Freedom of Information and Protection Act, and in accordance with Section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. We'll have a break and then we'll go